It started on a night she never meant to remember, and he never intended to forget. They called him Damien Veskov, the city's dark myth. A name people whispered like a warning, a man whose shadow could empty a room, cold, ruthless, untouchable. No one spoke. To him. No one looked him in the eye. No one dared. Except her. Except the little white rabbit who wandered into the wolf's den without knowing it. Her name was Ava Hart. Sweet, stubborn, hopelessly soft-hearted. The kind of girl who apologized when someone stepped on her foot. The world was too sharp for a girl like her. And Damien Veskov was the sharpest edge of all. But on that rainy Friday night, fate stopped caring about logic. Ava had come to the wrong bar. She should have realized when the music was too quiet, the crowd too tense, the atmosphere too heavy. She just wanted to hide from a long day, sip something cold, and pretend her life wasn't unraveling at the seams. She didn't know she had stepped into Veskov territory. She didn't know the man in the corner booth, silent, brooding, wrapped in shadows, was the Mafia king everyone feared. She didn't know destiny had already locked the door behind her. The moment she stepped inside, Damien looked up. No one ever caught his attention. No one ever dared to. But there she was, dripping rain, hugging her bag to her chest, eyes wide in that soft, stubborn, innocent way. A little white rabbit in the hunter's lair. He watched her like a man observing a rare phenomenon, something gentle in a world that had never been gentle to him. She didn't belong here. And yet, for reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't want her to leave. She tried to sit at the bar. One look from his men told her she didn't have permission. She blinked. Then, God help her, she smiled politely and sat anyway. Damien's jaw tightened. Who the hell was she? Nobody defied him. Nobody ignored his rules. Nobody smiled in a place like this. But this girl did. Without even knowing she was challenging the most dangerous man in the city. Minutes passed. He kept watching her. She kept pretending not to notice. And when some drunk idiot stumbled too close, reaching for her arm, Damien was on his feet, before the guy even finished blinking. His men froze. The whole bar froze. Damien never moved for anyone. But he moved for her. His hand wrapped around the guy's throat. Calm, lethal. Wrong girl, he said, voice low and cold enough to silence the entire room. When he let the man collapse and turned toward Ava, she looked up at him with startled brown eyes, soft, unafraid, curious. She didn't know she was staring at the monster in the city's nightmares. Damien didn't know why her innocence hit him like a punch. She whispered, thank you? He blinked. People usually begged him for mercy, or ran from him entirely. No one thanked Damien Veskov, ever. Something inside him. Something buried, forgotten, shifted. He sat beside her. She stiffened. He didn't blame her. Everyone in this city feared him. Everyone but the girl sitting in front of him, tapping her fingers nervously against her glass. Why are you here? He asked. Her voice trembled, but she answered honestly. Bad day. Wrong bar. I'll leave. He studied her like a secret. No, he said quietly. Stay. A command. A plea. A warning. He wasn't even sure. But she stayed. And somewhere between her soft laugh and his silent stare, the night took both of them places neither could escape. A night that would bind a monster to a little white rabbit. Forever. Ava woke to the unfamiliar scent of expensive cologne and the quiet hum of a city penthouse, high above the world. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Her head felt heavy, her body warm, her mind fogged with pieces of a memory she wasn't ready to face. Rain, a bar, dark eyes watching her, a voice that felt like velvet wrapped in steel. Damien Veskov. Her stomach flipped. She sat up too fast. Sheets slid from her shoulders. Clean, soft, terrifying. She wasn't wearing her jacket. Her shoes were gone. Her heart thudded so loudly it drowned out every other sound. Oh my God, what did I do? She whispered. But the room answered with silence. The penthouse was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, dim golden lighting. That felt too intimate for a man like him. Everything about the place screamed wealth, power, danger, and everything inside her screamed to run. She swung her legs off the bed, searching the floor for her clothes. Her dress was folded neatly, on a chair. Not ripped, not disturbed, just cared for, too carefully. She didn't remember falling asleep. She didn't remember being carried. She didn't remember anything after the second drink he ordered for her. A chill shot through her. The door creaked. Her breath caught. Damien Veskov leaned against the doorway, wearing dark slacks and a half-buttoned shirt, hair pushed back like he'd run his hand through it too many times. He looked like danger sculpted, into human shape, cold, unreadable, impossibly calm. He was watching her like she was the only unpredictable thing in his world. Ava froze. He didn't move. Neither did she. Then he spoke, quietly, deeply, in that voice that felt like it could command gravity itself. "You're awake." She swallowed. Where am I?" "My place." Her pulse jumped. "Why?" "You fell asleep," he said simply, "and you weren't safe to go home." She blinked at him, confused. Did anything?" "No." One word, flat, sharp, almost offended. Damien pushed away from the doorway and stepped closer. Too close. Close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him. "You slept." He paused. "In my arms." Her heartbeat stuttered. "And nothing happened," he finished. Her chest loosened. Nervous relief filled her lungs. "Okay. Good. Thank you. Really, I should go." She stood, slipping into her shoes with shaky hands. That was when his eyes cooled. "You think you can walk away from me?" It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a question. It was a fact he didn't understand how to accept. Ava froze again. "Damien, I don't belong here. I shouldn't even have talked to you last night." He stepped closer. She stepped back. "I shouldn't be in your life," she whispered. A muscle ticked in his jaw. "And yet you are." "By accident." He stared at her in a silence so heavy it felt like a storm gathering. "No accident puts you in my arms," he murmured. "No accident keeps me awake all night." "Watching you breathe." Her stomach dropped. "Damien." He exhaled slowly, as if trying and failing to steady himself. "I don't let people near me," he said. "Not my men. Not the women who throw themselves at me. Not the world." His eyes locked onto hers. "But you walked in. You sat where you shouldn't. You looked me in the eyes." He took another step. She hit the wall. "And now," he whispered, voice darkening, "you expect me to forget you?" Her throat tightened. He lifted his hand, but instead of touching her, he placed it against the wall beside her head, trapping her without laying a finger on her. "You can leave," he said quietly, "but understand something." His eyes burned into her soul. "I don't chase people." A beat. "I chase you." Her breath broke. And in that moment, she realized the monster hadn't just noticed her. He had chosen her. And monsters never let go. Ava had never walked through the city feeling eyes on her. Not until that morning. Not until she stepped out of the black penthouse tower that belonged to the one man everyone prayed they'd never meet, Damien Veskov. She tried to move quickly, head down, coat pulled tight around her. She wanted to disappear, pretend none of this had happened, pretend her life was still small, quiet, predictable. But the world around her didn't let her pretend. People stared. Not at her. At the building she'd just walked out of. Their whispers traveled like smoke. Someone came out of Veskov's place. Was that her? Poor girl, she won't last a week. He doesn't bring anyone home. Ava kept walking, heart pounding like footsteps chasing her. She didn't know his world. She didn't want to. But it felt like his name followed her down every street, around every corner, like a warning carved into the pavement. And yet, another part of her felt something else, something like gravity, something like the echo of his low voice in her head. Something she refused to acknowledge. "I don't chase people. I chase you." She shook her head. No, she wouldn't think about him. She couldn't. She had work. She had bills. She had a normal life, one she desperately wanted to return to. But when she reached the small cafe where she worked, normal vanished instantly. Her coworker Mia met her at the door, eyes wide. "Ava, oh my God, are you okay?" "What? Why?" You're all over the street cameras. Ava's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Mia pulled her inside. The other employees stared. One even backed away like Ava had, suddenly become radioactive. Mia lowered her voice. People saw you leaving his building. Ava didn't breathe. Mia whispered the name like a sin. Damien Veskov. Ava closed her eyes. Of course the city noticed. Of course nothing about him was simple. Mia pulled her into the back room. Ava, listen to me. People like him, they don't do casual. They don't do accidents. They don't do nights. Ava shook her head hard. It wasn't like that. Nothing happened. He just helped me. Mia stared at her like she'd grown wings. Damien Veskov doesn't help anyone. Ava didn't answer. How could she explain it? That he had watched her sleep like she was the only warm thing in his frozen world. That he had spoken to her with a strange mix of anger and softness. That he had chased her, but not touched her. She couldn't explain any of that. She barely understood it herself. By mid-afternoon, the whispers only grew worse. Customers kept glancing toward her, whispering behind cups. Mia glared at anyone who stared too long, but it didn't matter. Ava could feel his shadow everywhere, and then that shadow walked in. The cafe went silent. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Mia's jaw dropped. A coffee cup slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the floor. Damien Veskov stepped inside. Dark suit, cold eyes, the kind of presence that froze the entire building. He didn't look left or right. He didn't acknowledge the fear. He didn't slow down. His eyes were on her. Only her. Ava went breathless. He reached the counter, stopped, looked at her with that unreadable expression, like she was both a problem and the only solution he ever wanted. She managed to whisper, "Damien, you can't be here." "No," he said. "You can't be here." Her heart stumbled. What does that mean? He stepped closer, too close for a public space. The entire cafe held its breath. "It means," he said quietly, "the city knows you left my home." "So?" she whispered. Damien leaned in. "So now," he said softly, dangerously, "everyone wants to know who you are." He brushed past the counter and took her wrist, not harshly, not gently, possessively, claiming something he already believed belonged to him. "You're coming with me," he said. Ava stared at him, terrified and breathless. People whispered his name like a threat, Damien Veskov, but in his eyes, she saw something far worse, far more dangerous. Need, and she knew. Her life was no longer her own. Ava didn't realize she was holding her breath until the door of the cafe closed behind them, and the street swallowed them whole. Damien walked beside her like a shadow made of muscle and danger, his grip still wrapped around her wrist, firm, warm, unshakable. Not painful, but possessive. She tried to pull back. He didn't let go. "Damien, people are staring," she whispered. "I don't care," he said without looking at them. Of course he didn't. The king of the city didn't care who watched him claim something. And that was exactly what this felt like, claiming. She swallowed. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere my enemies don't get to look at you." Her heart stopped. Enemies. Right, he had those. Lots of them. And now, because she accidentally spent one night in his arms, they had noticed her. A normal girl. A cafe waitress. A soft-hearted rabbit in a world full of wolves. They reached his black car. Sleek, tinted, expensive enough to make her knees wobble. His aim. Men were waiting. They immediately lowered their eyes when Damien appeared. That was the kind of fear he commanded. He didn't order silence. Silence simply existed around him. Damien finally released her wrist long enough to open the door for her. "Get in," he said. Ava didn't move. "Damien, this is insane. I can go home. I can pretend none of this happened." He leaned down, eyes locking onto hers with dark intensity. "You can't pretend," he said. "I can't pretend. And they," his voice dropped to a dangerous growl, "will not pretend you don't matter." Her breath hitched. "I don't matter." His jaw clenched. "You do." She blinked at him, confused and overwhelmed. Damien was a man made of edges. Cold, sharp, controlled. But under that she could feel something new. Something pulling at him. Something he was fighting as much as she was. He exhaled slowly, like the confession physically hurt him. "You walked into my world," he murmured, "and I haven't stopped thinking about you since." Ava's stomach flipped. "We only met yesterday." "I know." His voice roughened. "That's the problem." He gently, shockingly gently, guided her into the car. Once she was inside, the door shut, and she felt trapped in a world too big, too dark, too dangerous, his world. Damien slid into the back beside her. Not across, not separate. Close enough for his presence, to swallow the air. The engine hummed to life. The car glided through the city like a black bullet. Ava stared out the window, heart pounding, trying to process the impossible. He watched her instead. He didn't hide it. He didn't apologize. He simply watched her like she was something he was trying to understand, and wanting to. Understand far too much. Finally, she whispered, "Why me?" He didn't answer for a long moment. The city lights flashed across his face. Cold, unreadable, beautiful in a terrifying way. Then he spoke softly, like a truth he didn't want to admit. "I don't know." A chill ran down her spine, not from fear, but from the honesty in his voice. Damien Veskov didn't admit uncertainty. He didn't admit weakness. He didn't allow himself to want. But he wanted her. His fingers brushed her hand. She flinched. He paused, watching her reaction, then slowly slipped his hand over hers, asking without asking. Her breath trembled. He closed his eyes for a beat, like the contact did something to him, like it filled a quiet, empty place inside his chest. "Last night," he said softly, "I should have let you walk away." She turned to him, heart twisting. "Then why didn't you?" He opened his eyes, dark, intense, hungry, a storm barely caged under his skin. "Because you walked in looking like you didn't belong in my world," he said quietly. "And I wanted you to." Her pulse pounded in her ears. His voice dropped lower. "I don't get obsessed," he murmured. "But you, Ava—" He stopped, jaw tightening. She whispered, "Damien?" He looked at her with something feral and vulnerable all at once. "You're under my skin," he confessed. "And I don't know how to get you out." Ava's breath caught, and that was the moment she realized. The city's coldest monster wasn't just watching her. He was falling. And falling monsters were the most dangerous kind. The car rolled to a stop in front of a building Ava had never seen before. Sleek, tall, wrapped in steel and tinted glass. It wasn't his penthouse tower. It wasn't a restaurant. It wasn't anything. She recognized. It felt private. Too private. Damien stepped out first. His men waited on the sidewalk, not daring to move until he gave a nod. The street was silent, like even the city understood it should hold its breath for him. Ava followed slowly, her legs unsteady. He reached for her, hesitated for the briefest second, and then rested his hand at the small of her back. Possessive, protective, claiming. The heat of his touch burned through her clothes and straight into her spine. "Where are we?" she whispered. "My safe house." Her throat tightened. Why here?" He didn't answer. Not at first. He guided her through the front door, a heavy steel door that locked behind them with a sound that felt too final. Inside, the place was dim, warm, expensive, but stripped down compared to his penthouse. No art, no luxury. Just sleek furniture and walls that felt engineered to survive a war. This wasn't a home. This was his den, the heart of the monster's kingdom. Ava turned to him. "Damien, tell me what's going on." He stepped closer, shadows carving along the sharp lines of his face. "You're being watched," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "By who?" "People who want leverage," he said. "People who want to test me. Hurt me." His jaw clenched. "And now they know they can look at you." She backed up, her pulse racing. "I'm not part of your world." "You are now. Not by choice." He stopped. The air between them tensed, stretched, charged. Damien looked at her like he was studying a wound he knew belonged to him. "Everything changed the moment you walked into my bar." "I didn't know it was yours." "That doesn't matter," he said, stepping closer. "You walked in. You looked at me. You stayed." "Because you scared me," she whispered. He lowered his head, eyes darkening. "I scare everyone. Not me. Something flickered in his gaze, something sharp and dangerous and broken. That, he said quietly, is exactly why I can't let you go. Ava's breath trembled. Damien, what do you want from me? His answer came without hesitation. You. The word hit the room like a crack of thunder. He didn't say it like a question. He didn't say it like a request. He said it like a verdict carved into stone. Ava shook her head, overwhelmed. You can't just decide that? Yes, he murmured, stepping forward until her back touched the wall. I can. She swallowed. You don't own me. His hand lifted, slowly, carefully, until his fingers brushed her jaw. The touch was gentle. Too gentle for a man like him. It made her chest ache. I know that, he said softly. But for the first time in my life, I want to. Her pulse stuttered. Damien leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek. He didn't kiss her. He didn't touch her lips. He just hovered there, close enough for electricity to spark between them. I brought you here, he whispered. Because the city is looking at you the way predators look at prey. Ava's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. And I will not let them touch you, he said, voice low, fierce, final. I will not let them think they can, she whispered. Damien. His hand slid from her jaw to the side of her neck, still gentle, still controlled, but undeniably claiming. You're under my protection, he said. A pause. No, under me. Her breath hitched. His forehead rested lightly against hers, the closest he had allowed himself to come since that night. This is not temporary, he murmured. You are mine now. The words were a brand, a vow, a warning wrapped in hunger. Ava's knees weakened. And in that dim safe house, with his breath against her skin, and his voice sinking into her bones, she realized this wasn't the beginning of something dangerous. It was already too late. The monster had claimed her, and monsters never gave back what they took. The days that followed were a battlefield of tension, soft and dangerous, quiet and explosive. And Ava felt every shift like a tremor beneath her feet, because Damien Veskov, the man the city feared, the man whose shadow could silence a room, had developed an interest that looked a lot like obsession. And obsession never stayed. Still, it pushed, it pulled, it claimed, it hesitated, it devoured. And Ava, she was caught right in the center. Damien appeared everywhere she turned. At first, she thought it was coincidence. She'd walk through her small apartment building lobby, and he would be there, leaning casually against the wall, hands in his pockets, eyes unreadable. She'd step into a cafe to grab coffee, and he'd already be seated at a corner table, the light, catching the angles of his face. Even in the quiet of a bookstore, she'd find him browsing the shelves 2 aisles over, casually, watching her over the rim of a book. Not speaking, just watching. And God, that was somehow worse. Ava told herself she should ignore him. She told herself she shouldn't react. But fighting. Damien's presence was like trying to resist gravity. One afternoon, she tried the impossible. She attempted distance. She slipped into a small park, hoping for quiet air, sunlight, something normal. But she hadn't even reached the fountain when she felt him behind her, without seeing him, without a sound. Just presence. Damien's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. Running again, little rabbit? She exhaled sharply. I'm not running. He hummed. A sound almost like amusement, almost like frustration. You only come out here when you're overwhelmed. She turned to meet his eyes, and for the first time, she saw something flicker there. Something softer than obsession, something more fragile than his reputation suggested. But Damien didn't allow softness to win. He stepped closer, jaw tight, expression composed but eyes betraying the truth. You make me restless, he admitted, voice low, rough. And I don't know how to handle that. The world seemed to still. Damien Veskov, ruthless, untouchable, a man everyone feared, didn't know how to handle her. Ava's lips parted, breath trembling. You don't have to control everything. He let out a humorless laugh. I control empires, wars, lives. I do not control how I react to you. The push. He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with a gentleness that didn't match the man he was. His knuckles brushed her cheek. His breath grazed her jaw. Every nerve in her body lit up. And then, just when her heart stumbled forward, he stepped back. The pull, his expression hardened. His walls rose, thick, unyielding, fortified. "This," he murmured, "is dangerous." "For me or for you?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Both. The next morning, the push returned. He followed her movements in the kitchen, guided her hand gently as she poured coffee, hovered close enough that warmth from his body seeped into hers. That evening, when she tried to slip past him in the hallway, Damien's hand shot out and caught her wrist. His touch was firm, protective, claiming. "Stop trying to escape me," he said, voice low, dark, intimate. Her heartbeat raced. "And what if I don't want to stay?" He exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. "Then I'll give you a reason to." The push, the pull, the slow, inevitable unraveling of a man who controlled everything but her. Damien Veskov was losing control. And Ava Hart, she was losing the ability to resist him. Ava had begun to notice the shadows behind Damien Veskov's eyes, shadows that didn't belong to the city, to power, to fear. They were older, deeper, and darker than anything the world knew. One evening, after a long day of tension, of push and pull, Damien led her to his penthouse. The city glittered beneath them, 1,000 lights that looked small and insignificant compared to the storm in his gaze. "Sit," he said quietly, his voice softer than usual. She obeyed, though unease churned in her stomach. He didn't sit. He leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the city like it owed him something. "I'm not the man you think I am," he said finally, his voice barely audible over the distant hum of traffic. Ava tilted her head. No," he interrupted. "Don't say anything, just listen." He exhaled slowly, eyes distant, lost in a memory that seemed to pull the light from the room. "My father," he began, voice tight, raw, "was a man who taught me to fear weakness above all else. He ruled with violence, with intimidation. Every mistake I made, every act of mercy, it was punished. I learned early that people like me don't forgive. People like me don't cry." Ava's chest ached. She had imagined him powerful, untouchable, a monster in black. She hadn't imagined the boy he once was, the boy forged in fear. "My mother tried to teach me kindness," he continued, jaw tight, fingers flexing against the glass. "She didn't last long. The world doesn't forgive softness. So I buried it. Buried her lessons. Buried the part of me that wanted love, that wanted to trust, that wanted normal." He turned, eyes locking onto hers, sharper than any knife. "And yet," he whispered, "here you are." Ava felt the weight of his gaze, the hunger, the longing, the control, and something else. "Why me?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. Damien took a step closer, the light catching the planes of his face. "Because you're different. You make me feel things I've buried. You make me remember the part of me I swore I'd never let exist. And the more I resist it, the more I—" He stopped, hand tightening around the edge of the table, knuckles white. "Lose control." Ava's heart raced. She had glimpsed the monster in public, in push and pull, in possessive touches. But this was the man behind the mask, the boy shaped by pain, the man trapped by fear, the wolf who had never allowed himself a rabbit. "You think I'm afraid?" he asked suddenly, voice low, almost growling. "Yes," she whispered. His lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. "Good. You should be." But then his expression softened, and for the first time, Ava noticed the vulnerability in the shadows of his eyes. "I wasn't always this," he admitted. "The world made me this. People feared me, and I learned to love the fear more than anything else." Ava took a small step toward him. He didn't move back. He let her, but his eyes never left hers. "You're different," she whispered. "I see more than the monster. I see him. The part you hide." Damien's chest tightened. He looked away for a fraction of a second, then back. The guard returned to his face, but she had seen the crack, and that was all he needed. For the first time, Ava realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She could reach him. She could soften the monster. She could touch the part of Damien Veskov that the city would never know existed. And perhaps he wanted her to. A tension hung in the air. Dangerous, magnetic, irresistible. The wolf and the little white rabbit. The darkness and the light. And neither would ever be the same again. Ava had begun to feel the weight of Damien's world pressing in. The city had always been a place of shadows. But now, the shadows seemed to move differently. She could feel it. Danger. Weaving around her like a living thing. It started subtly. Footsteps that lingered a moment too long outside her apartment. A car parked across the street at odd hours. Engine off. Headlights dimmed. Whispers of her name in places she never expected. Cafes, stores, even the street outside her. Building. She tried to dismiss it. Tried to tell herself Damien was exaggerating. That the world wasn't. Watching. But the look in his eyes, always alert, always calculating, told her differently. One evening, she returned home after work to find a note slipped under her door. "Stay away from him, little rabbit, or you'll regret it." Her hands shook as she held it. The handwriting was sharp, jagged, threatening. She didn't have to wonder who it was. Damien. He arrived moments later, standing at her door, coat over his shoulders, expression unreadable. "You saw it," he said quietly. Ava nodded, fear mixing with adrenaline. Who would do this? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped inside, his presence filling the small apartment like a storm. "They know you exist," he murmured. "And they don't like it. The people I've crushed, the enemies I've destroyed, they see you and they think they have leverage. They think they can hurt me through you." Ava's stomach dropped. "But I'm not part of this world." "Now you are," Damien said softly, almost tenderly, though the edge in his voice remained. "By the moment you walked into my life, you became part of mine, and my enemies will notice. Everything." He moved closer, eyes scanning her face for the tiniest flicker of doubt. "Do you understand?" "Yes," she whispered. He exhaled sharply, tension rolling off him like heat from a forge. "Good, because they will try. And I won't let them." The threat in his tone made her heart pound. But even as fear surged through her, she realized something else. Something intoxicating. Damien's obsession wasn't just possessive, it was protective, absolute. He walked to the window, scanning the street below. Then he turned, expression sharp, calculating. "You have to be careful," he said. "No matter what you think you know about me, or this life, nothing is as it seems. Every smile, every shadow, every whisper could be a threat. And they will find you if you let your guard down." Ava swallowed, pulse racing. I can handle myself." Damien shook his head. "No, not in this world. Not against them. Not against me." Her eyes widened. "Against you?" He exhaled slowly. "I don't allow anyone near me. But you've broken every rule I've ever lived by. You've forced my attention, my focus, my obsession, and the world doesn't forgive." Obsession. The room went quiet except for the distant hum of the city. Ava's mind raced, thinking of the warning note, of the shadows outside, of Damien's gaze, burning, vigilant, unyielding. He stepped close again, fingers brushing her cheek, not a threat this time, but a promise. "They will come for you," he murmured. "But I will be there, always. And if they even think about touching you..." His voice dropped to a growl, low and lethal. "They'll regret it. Every second of it." Ava's breath caught. His obsession, terrifying as it was, had become her shield. For the first time, she realized the truth. The world's most dangerous man had made her his center. And that made her untouchable, in ways she never imagined. Yet it also made her a target, because once Damien Veskov wanted something, he never let go, and everyone who tried to take it paid the price. Ava's world had begun to shrink. Every step outside her apartment, every movement she made, was now measured against the invisible threat Damien had warned her about. Shadows didn't feel like shadows anymore. They were eyes. Whispers weren't just rumors. They were warnings. And Damien Veskov, he had decided there would be no more risks. She barely had time to process before he arrived at her door one evening, coat over his shoulders, eyes dark, jaw tight. "You're coming with me," he said, voice low and commanding. Ava's chest tightened. "Damien, No discussion," he interrupted, tone final. "It's not safe. Not for you. Not while they're watching." Her hands went to her coat, but he stopped her, placing a firm hand on her wrist. His touch was possessive, unwavering, claiming. "You don't belong in the streets anymore," he continued. "Not while I'm alive. Not while I'm aware. You're coming with me, and that's final." Before she could protest further, he turned and led her out of her apartment into his waiting car. His men flanked them, silent, eyes alert, every muscle coiled like a predator ready to strike. The ride was silent. Ava stared out the tinted window at the city passing by, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched her fear and the adrenaline Damien had ignited in her. Finally, he spoke, voice softer than it had been outside. "You're safe with me. No one will touch. You, not them, not anyone," she swallowed. "I don't want to be a part of your world. I can't handle it." He reached over, fingers brushing the back of her hand. "You've already become part of it," he said quietly. "The moment you walked into my bar, the moment you stayed, that choice was made, whether you knew it or not. I claimed you then, and I claim you now." Ava's breath caught. She had imagined fear before, tension before, even desire before. But this was different. This was possession, absolute, protective, dangerous. When they reached Damien's mansion, the scale of his world became impossible to ignore. Black iron gates, guards hidden in shadows, cameras tracking every movement. Inside, the air was cool, controlled, almost sterile, yet impossibly intimate. He released her hand only enough to lead her into the sitting room, where the walls were lined with books, weapons, and trophies of a life she would never fully understand. "You'll stay here," he said, gesturing to a room on the second floor. Locked, monitored, protected. Ava's stomach twisted. "Locked?" "Yes," he said simply. "Until I know it's safe. Until I know no one will come for you. Until I know—" "You're mine." Her pulse raced at the words. You can't just—" He cut her off with a soft, almost intimate whisper. "I can." Her chest tightened. She wanted to protest, wanted to assert herself, but the truth was undeniable. Damien Veskov didn't do things half-heartedly. When he decided something, it became reality. That night, he watched her sleep. Not in the way of a stalker, but as a guardian, an obsession, a shadow wrapped in human form. Every breath she took, every shiver of fear he catalogued, memorized and claimed silently as his responsibility. Ava realized she was no longer living her life. She was living his protection, and with every heartbeat under his watchful gaze, she understood one terrifying, exhilarating fact. She could never leave. Not truly. Not while Damien Veskov wanted her, claimed her, and refused to let the world touch her. Because once he decided someone belonged to him, he never let them go. Ava had been under Damien Veskov's protection for days now, confined to the walls of his mansion, but the air between them had shifted. Something unspoken had begun to stir, a tension neither of them could ignore, a vulnerability hiding beneath the ruthless mask he wore. So well, she had tried to keep her distance, tried to remind herself he was dangerous, unpredictable, untouchable. But when Damien entered a room, the walls themselves seemed to lean toward him, bending to the force of his presence. That evening, Damien appeared in the library. She had been reading a book, trying to escape. Her thoughts, trying to find a fragment of normalcy in a world that had been stripped from her the moment she walked into his life. "You read too much," he said quietly, voice low, controlled yet strangely intimate. Ava looked up, startled. Do I? Yes, he said, stepping closer. It keeps your mind busy. Keeps it from thinking about me. Her pulse quickened. I'm not thinking about you. Damien raised an eyebrow, expression unreadable, but eyes betraying the faintest flicker of amusement. Oh, I don't believe that. Not for a second. She swallowed, unsure how to respond. But before she could, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Just a touch, gentle, careful. Yet every nerve in her body ignited. Why do you look like you want to fight me and run to me at the same time? He asked. Softly, Ava shook her head, unsure how to answer. Words would betray her feelings before she was ready. Damien stepped closer, the space between them shrinking, the room charged with something dangerous, magnetic, and intimate. I don't usually, he began, voice low, hesitant, almost strangled by emotion. I don't usually feel this way. Her eyes widened. Feel what way? He swallowed, eyes dark, jaw tight. Vulnerable. The word hit her like a punch. Damien Veskov, the city's most feared man, the man everyone whispered about in terror, the monster who commanded armies and shadows alike, was vulnerable in front of her. Her chest tightened. She had never imagined seeing him like this. The walls he built around himself, strong, dark, impenetrable, were cracking, and she was the first one to notice. You, he said, taking another careful step. Make me forget who I am, who I have to be. And I don't like it. Ava's throat went dry. I don't mean to. No, he whispered, voice rough, low, vulnerable. You don't. And that's the problem. He reached out, hand trembling slightly as it brushed her cheek, thumb tracing the curve of her jaw. His dark eyes searched hers, unguarded for the first time. Ava's breath hitched. She had dreamed about moments like this, about the man behind the monster, but now it was real, and terrifying, and exhilarating. Then he leaned closer, just a fraction, eyes flicking to her lips before snapping back to her eyes. I shouldn't do this, he murmured, almost to himself. I don't let anyone close. Damien, she whispered, heart hammering, not sure if she wanted him to stop or go further. I know, he said, voice breaking the faintest, smallest fraction. But I can't help it. The space between them thinned. His lips hovered near hers, not touching, yet close enough, that the heat of him brushed her skin, lighting something wild and dangerous inside both of them. A crack had formed in the armor he wore for the world. The monster who had once terrified everyone, now feared losing control over the one thing he hadn't intended to want, Ava Hart. And in that suspended, breathless moment, Ava realized that the game had changed. The wolf had a crack, and she had found it. The night was heavy with tension, thick and suffocating, as though the city itself had paused, holding its breath. Ava couldn't tell if it was the silence of Damien's penthouse or the silence between them, but either way, it pressed against her chest with every heartbeat. Damien Veskov had been unusually quiet all evening. He hovered nearby, not touching, yet impossible to ignore. His dark eyes followed her every movement, tracking, measuring, waiting. And Ava felt it in her bones. Something unspoken, dangerous, and inevitable was about to happen. She tried to keep her composure, tried to tell herself it was just proximity, just obsession, just the claustrophobic intensity of his world pressing against hers. She was wrong. He finally broke the silence. You shouldn't be here, he murmured, voice low, controlled, almost a growl. Ava froze. Damien! You're too close to me, he whispered, stepping nearer, the heat from his body wrapping around her like fire. I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't want this. She looked up at him, heart hammering. Want what? His jaw tightened. He hesitated, just a fraction. The mask of control he wore so flawlessly wavered, cracking under the weight of something raw and dangerous. You, he said simply. One word, enough to ignite everything inside her. Ava's breath hitched. Damien! He moved closer, not stopping this time, his hand brushing against hers, lingering, tracing the curve of her fingers as though memorizing her. She didn't pull away. How could she? Every nerve screamed. Every instinct battled between fear and desire. I don't, he murmured, his voice breaking slightly. I don't let anyone near me. I don't feel this way. She saw the conflict in him. Control fighting desire, possession fighting restraint, the monster, battling the man beneath. And something in her chest twisted at the vulnerability she glimpsed, raw and human behind the predator's eyes. Then don't fight it, she whispered, barely audible. That seemed to shatter something inside him. His hands trembled just slightly as he cupped her face, drawing her attention entirely to him. His dark eyes burned into hers, searching, commanding, pleading. You shouldn't, he said again. And this time there was no hesitation in the words, just the weight of inevitability. But I can't stop myself. The air between them pulsed. Every sound, every breath, every heartbeat was magnified. The tension stretched to its breaking point, and then Damien leaned in. Their lips met, softly at first, almost questioning, as if testing the boundary between restraint and surrender. Ava froze, shock and longing warring inside her. His lips pressed harder, claiming, hungry, desperate, yet careful enough to make her breath shatter. He broke the kiss briefly, forehead resting against hers, chest rising and falling in unsteady rhythm. You're dangerous, he whispered, voice low, rough. You make me forget everything I've built, everything I promised myself. I don't care, she breathed, feeling the truth of it, the magnetic pull of the moment, the undeniable connection they could no longer deny. Damien's hand slid to the nape of her neck, drawing her closer, as though he were anchoring himself to her, grounding himself to something human. His lips found hers again, deeper this time, urgent, possessive, like he was claiming something already his, and Ava felt the pull, fear, and desire, danger, and thrill, all at once. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads still pressed together, he whispered against her, lips, voice barely audible. This shouldn't happen. But it has. And now, there's no going back. Ava's pulse raced, her body tingling with heat, her mind dizzy with the intensity of him. The monster she had feared had allowed a crack, and inside that crack, she had stepped. And there was no escaping it now. The night air outside Damien Veskov's penthouse was cold, but Ava's skin burned from the events of the evening. She had thought, for the first time, that something between them had changed, something unspoken, fragile, dangerous yet real. She hadn't expected the betrayal. It started subtly. Messages intercepted, whispers of her presence spreading faster than the city should have allowed. Damien's guards were tense, his phone vibrating constantly with warnings and threats. But Ava didn't see it coming. The personal attack, the violation of the bubble, Damien had built around her. She returned from a brief errand, hoping to find quiet, and instead found a note slipped under her door. Not the usual warnings, but something different. He's not yours. You're walking into danger. Her pulse quickened. She recognized the handwriting, familiar, dangerous, and deliberate. Someone had managed to infiltrate Damien's life, and now her name was bait. Before she could process it, Damien was there. Always there. Dark coat, sharper than the night. Eyes burning with a fury that made the walls of the penthouse shiver. You saw it, he said quietly. Yes, she whispered, hands shaking. But Damien, who would... He didn't answer immediately. He simply stepped closer, eyes scanning her, reading her fear, parsing her reaction as if it were a puzzle only he could solve. They've crossed a line, he said at last. Someone close. Someone I trusted. They leaked. Your presence. They want leverage. They want to hurt me. Through you. Ava's stomach churned. But who? Damien's jaw clenched. Someone I let in, someone I believed could be loyal. They lied. His voice dropped to a growl. And now, you're in the crossfire. The betrayal cut through the room like ice. Ava realized suddenly, not only was Damien's world dangerous, but even those closest to him could not be trusted. Not a single person. And by proximity, she was the most vulnerable. I didn't mean, she began, but Damien silenced her with a look, dark, commanding, and unyielding. No, he said softly, almost tenderly, yet lethal in its certainty. You didn't mean anything. You never do. They meant this. They meant to pull you into my world as bait. And now, I have to protect you. His hand lifted, brushing against hers, possessive, claiming. And I will, no matter the cost. Ava felt a cold wave of fear mixed with the familiar pull, the dangerous thrill that came with being near him. She had stepped into his world willingly before, but now she realized just how much she had underestimated the stakes. Damien moved toward the window, eyes scanning the city below, tension coiling in every line of his body. They think they can manipulate me, he whispered, voice low, dangerous. They think they can touch you and get to me, but they don't know the monster you're dealing with. Ava watched him, heart pounding. She knew Damien Veskov was feared for a reason, but seeing the crack of vulnerability, the fury born from betrayal, she understood something new. He would do anything. Anything. And anyone who had dared to cross them would pay. She swallowed, realizing the truth. The city might tremble before him, but now she was the reason he would unleash that fear. The people who betrayed him didn't just threaten. Damien, they threatened her. And in that moment, Ava understood something terrifying and exhilarating. The bond between them had shifted. The stakes had escalated. And betrayal had a way of turning obsession into a weapon, one that he would wield without mercy. Damien's hand found hers again, holding it as though he could anchor himself to her, to control the storm raging inside. His dark eyes locked onto hers. Never forget, he whispered, voice low and lethal. No one hurts what I claim. And you are mine. Ava's chest tightened. The monster had returned. And betrayal had only strengthened his hold. The night had fallen heavy and black, wrapping the city in a suffocating silence. Ava had been restless, uneasy, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. Damien Veskov didn't usually show it, but tonight, even he moved with a tension that was impossible to ignore. The first sign was subtle, a shadow slipping past the gate, a figure moving too smoothly, too deliberately. Ava saw it from the second-floor balcony. Damien, she whispered, voice trembling. Someone's outside. His head snapped toward her, sharp, precise, predator alert. His hand gripped the edge of the railing, knuckles white, body coiled like a panther ready to strike. Stay inside, he ordered. Voice low, lethal. Before she could respond, the sound of shattering glass tore through the calm. The front gates, security system had been breached, and the intruders were in. Damien's eyes darkened, stormy and cold. Get down, he commanded. Ava dove behind the furniture, heart hammering. She had never seen this side of him before. Calm, measured, precise, yet terrifying. The man who had haunted the city's whispers was now right in front of her, moving like a shadow, lethal and untouchable. The attackers were quick, trained, dangerous, but Damien was faster. Every movement was controlled, each strike calculated. His fists, precise. His body, fluid. He disarmed one man, threw another against the wall, and took the third down with a brutal efficiency that left no room for hesitation. Ava's breath caught. She had known he was dangerous, feared him for it even. But seeing him protect her, seeing the fury in his eyes, made her chest ache in ways she couldn't explain. One of the intruders managed to grab a knife and lunge at her hiding spot. Damien intercepted, in a heartbeat, catching the man by the wrist and twisting, forcing him to drop the weapon. He didn't speak, He didn't hesitate. He simply moved, every motion a deadly poem of precision and control. "Go!" he barked, voice sharp as steel. "Stay behind me!" Ava didn't need to be told twice. She clung to the shadows, eyes wide, stomach twisting with fear and awe. She could feel the raw power radiating from him, a storm contained in human form. The attackers, realizing they had underestimated him, hesitated, giving Damien the opening to eliminate the threat with merciless efficiency. Each movement was lethal, controlled, and terrifying to witness. When the last man fell, Damien's breathing was steady, controlled, but his eyes were dark, burning with a fury that left no doubt. Anyone who dared to touch what was his would pay. Ava emerged slowly, still trembling, voice barely audible. "Damien, they could have—" "They tried," he said, voice low, sharp, deadly calm. "But no one touches you. Not while I'm alive. Not while I'm here. Not while I breathe." His hands found her shoulders, holding her firm, possessive, protective, claiming. She could feel the intensity in his gaze, the storm beneath the calm mask, the monster that everyone feared, and now the man who loved her, or at least something dangerously close to it. Ava's chest tightened, pulse racing. The attack had changed everything. The danger wasn't abstract anymore. It was tangible, close, and deadly. And Damien's obsession, his possessive protection, had revealed a truth she could no longer ignore. He leaned down slightly, voice softening just enough for her to hear the subtle vulnerability beneath the lethal control. "This world will never be safe for you, but I will make sure you survive, no matter what it takes." And in that moment, Ava realized that her life had changed forever. The monster who terrified the city had become her shield, and anyone who dared attack her would face the full force of Damien Veskov's fury. The attack was over, but the war had just begun. The penthouse was quiet now, almost unnaturally so. The echoes of the attack still lingered, the tension of the night pressing into every corner of the room. Damien Veskov stood by the window, silhouetted against the city lights, dark and unyielding. But tonight, something was different. Ava approached cautiously, unsure if she should speak or stay silent. The storm she had feared, inside him, the predator, the unstoppable force, was still there, but beneath it cracks had begun to show. "Damien," she whispered softly. He didn't turn immediately. The silence stretched, heavy, thick, almost suffocating. Then, slowly, he faced her. His eyes, once untouchable and cold, now shimmered with something raw, something he had spent a lifetime burying. He began, voice low, rough, unsteady. I don't usually—" Ava's pulse quickened. "You don't usually—" "What?" He stepped closer, the tension in his frame palpable. "I don't let anyone see this side of me. The part that—" He swallowed, the words catching in his throat. "The part that feels." Ava's chest tightened. She had seen glimpses, cracks, fleeting moments, but hearing him admit it, even in fragments, made her heart ache. "You're scared of me," she said softly. "But I see you, the man behind the monster." Damien's jaw clenched. "I am not human. Not anymore. I am—" He paused, voice dropping to a near whisper. "I am danger. You're also—" Ava took a step closer, hesitating only a heartbeat, capable of love, of care, of everything I've been feeling since the first night. His eyes widened slightly, like her words had pierced the armor he had built brick by brick over years of blood and fear. The mask he wore for the world slipped just a fraction. "I don't know how," he murmured, almost to himself. "I've never allowed anyone close enough to make me weak." Ava reached for him, trembling. Her hand brushed against his, tentative, searching. "You're not weak, Damien. You're human. And I I want all of you. Even the parts you're afraid to show. Something in him shifted. His shoulders relaxed, just slightly, and the monster that terrified the city seemed to falter, stumble, let down its guard. You want me? He asked, voice barely audible, broken in a way that made her chest ache. Yes, she whispered, courage threading through her fear. I want you. All of you. Not the fearsome Damien Veskov the world trembles before. The real man, the one I see behind the darkness. His lips trembled, and for the first time, Ava saw vulnerability, raw and unmasked. The man who had claimed her, protected her, haunted her dreams, was falling. Not to someone else, not to his enemies, but to her. The walls around him shattered piece by piece. His chest rose and fell, tense yet yielding. He lowered his forehead to hers, a soft sigh escaping his lips. I can't control this, he admitted. I don't know how to be like this. Then don't, Ava whispered. Just be you, with me. A tremor ran through him, the dangerous, lethal edge giving way to something softer, something almost tender. He leaned in, and for the first time, his lips touched hers. Not as a predator, not as a conqueror, but as a man who had allowed himself to fall, willingly, completely. The kiss was slow, deliberate, vulnerable. The monster the city feared had fallen. And what remained was Damien Veskov. Damien Veskov, the man who could finally feel, and Ava Hart was there to witness it. The fall of the monster wasn't a defeat. It was a revelation. And the bond between them, dangerous, unyielding, inevitable, had become something neither could escape. For the first time in years, Damien Veskov wasn't untouchable. He was alive, and he was hers. The dawn crept slowly over the city, soft light spilling across Damien Veskov's penthouse. For the first time in years, the empire he had built, the shadows he commanded, the fear he inspired, all of it faded to nothing beside her. Ava Hart stood by the window, watching the city stir below. Her pulse was steady now, her hands trembling not from fear but from anticipation. She had seen Damien in the storm, in the chaos, in the moments when the monster had ruled his world. But she had also seen him, unguarded, broken, human, and now she knew she held the key to his heart. Damien appeared behind her silently, the sound of his presence a comfort she had longed for. His hand rested lightly on her waist, thumb brushing in slow circles, grounding, claiming. "You're awake?" she whispered, turning slightly to meet his gaze. "I've been awake," he murmured, voice low, velvety, dangerous. Thinking, remembering, realizing. Ava tilted her head, curiosity mingling with something deeper. Realizing what? He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking until she could feel the heat of his body, the rhythm of his heartbeat, the dark intensity in his eyes. "That I've been living for everything, except you. That every move I made, every empire I built, every shadow I controlled, was meaningless without the one thing I never thought I'd want." Her breath caught. "And that is you," he said simply. One word, heavier than any declaration, more powerful than any vow. "You, Ava Hart. The little white rabbit who stole my heart, who shattered my rules, who made me feel again." Ava's chest tightened. She had known he desired her, protected her, claimed her. But hearing the confession, the truth laid bare without the shields of obsession or danger, it left her, trembling. "I never believed anyone could change me," Damien continued, voice dropping to a whisper. "I never believed anyone could tame the monster. But you didn't tame me. You didn't soften me. You found me, and now I belong to you." Tears threatened her eyes, not from sadness, but from the intensity of the moment. The city, outside, the danger, the fear, the obsession, it all vanished. The monster who had haunted everyone's nightmares had fallen. and the man she had come to love stood before her, vulnerable and open, heart in her hands. Ava reached up, cupping his face, thumb brushing the line of his jaw. "Then we belong to each other," she whispered, voice soft but unshakable. "All of you. All of me." Damien's lips found hers in a kiss that was nothing like before. No hesitation, no possessive push, no urgent desperation. This was full, consuming, unbreakable. Every fear, every shadow, every piece of darkness that had ruled his life melted away in that single moment. When they finally broke apart, foreheads resting together, Damien's hand slipped to the small of her back, holding her closer, claiming her in a way that was tender yet absolute. "My heart," he murmured against her lips, "has always been yours." "And mine," she breathed, "has always been yours, Damien." The world outside could wait. The threats, the enemies, the shadows. They existed, yes, but none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was this: Damien Veskov, the man who had terrified the world, had surrendered his heart. And Ava Hart, the little white rabbit who had dared to enter his life, had claimed it fully. In that quiet, stolen moment, the city's most feared man smiled, soft, unguarded, human, and Ava knew without a doubt that the heart of the monster now beat entirely for her. And the rabbit had won, and that was the story of Damien Veskov and Ava Hart, the feared monster of the city, and the little white rabbit who stole his heart. A tale of danger, obsession, and love that no one could have predicted. If you felt your heart race, if you were captivated by every twist, every stolen glance, every forbidden kiss, imagine what's still waiting in the next story. Don't miss a single moment. Hit subscribe now and join us as we dive deeper into worlds of passion, suspense, and hearts that refuse to be tamed. Your next obsession is just a click away. Subscribe and let the story continue.